I have a watch party. We've been kind of watching the Netflix series one day at a time. So today is episode 5. Me and a few other people, and along the way we kind of discussed our thoughts on what we're seeing. And
I love it.
The most interesting thing is, and David, I know you want to get started on the discussion about the series and
This is
everything.
great.
But
I'm just impressed that you had the restraint to watch. Like,
oh my God.
Like that's
Yeah.
usually how I do things. Like I usually don't like to binge anything. I'm always I like to nurse it.
The funny thing is about us, all three of us being all 4 of us being diehard Avatar fans, is that we're looking at it through a different lens versus 100%. The audience that's just never seen it. So and if you're tracking the show, it's number 1. It's currently number 1 on Netflix. You know how they got it 1 through 10 or whatever. Sure. So it's number 1 in the US. And I'm thinking, okay, well, you have a lot of new fans out there. I mean, I'm 50, man. Like I turned 50 last week. So you have a lot of new fans, and they're seeing this for the first time. So they don't know, what's what and which way this is supposed to go. And but us, we're like, hey, man, what the hell? They skipped over the northern the northern air temple and blah blah blah. And Teo's supposed to be flying around. But
yeah, I mean, even honestly,
I know it's gonna be different.
Like I was so curious to talk to you guys because from my viewpoint, obviously Star's not here. I would include her as well. Mm-hmm. Like you guys were part of the initial Avatar fans ever, as far as I'm concerned. Like I'm sure there's people that were earlier fans, but
first guy in the forums first.
But like you guys were like my introduction to like the fandom that was happening while the show was still not even just in production, but before it had even taken off, like within its own, relative terms of success that it had, during its initial airing. But yeah, and then I was like, I haven't really talked to you guys since. Like, it's been wild to see the evolution of like certainly from pandemic times when it was on Netflix. I feel like once it hit Netflix, there was like this big sea shift of like, like it's like a whole other, the thing that we always cared about was suddenly like, so like what you're talking about, with these like old school fans versus new, like there's like almost like 3 eras of like when people kind of came.
Yes. Time waits for no one.
So you were having a watch party with people who were fans, like people who knew the material?
Yeah, well, Kevin, Eric Hufana. You've met Eric Hufana.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk to Eric all the time. We talk about Ghostbusters stuff all the time too.
Great. And Kim, I don't know if Dave
talk about that as well. Talk about nostalgia bait.
Dave and Anthony, Kim and Eric came later on, and San Diego Comic-Con for us is like the hub of Avatar, like the top fans. Even though
spaghetti dinner,
I consider us top fans first, but there are other top fans. They just don't come to the convention, or they travel within the realm of Avatar through other avenues and other platforms, etc. But they came later on. So me and Eric been in touch all this time for years and years, and he even came down. You've seen him in Comic-Con, and we met on DeviantArt when DeviantArt was a big thing.
A lot of us met on DeviantArt, isn't that crazy?
Yes, a lot of us. Yes.
This show creates the most craziest friendship. Isn't that something? Yeah. The show brings so many different people together, man, from all over the world. Because Eric lives in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we became really good friends. If it had not been for the Avatar, the little arrowhead, this wouldn't have happened. So it just shows how deep our love is for the show,
It was. I've been reflecting on that ever since Dave suggested we get together and do this. And I thought, my gosh, it's been so long since I've seen your faces. Yeah. And I think back about that time and I think to myself, that was, my life's not over. I don't take this in a grim way, but I'm like, that was easily the best decade of my life.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Getting to hang out with you guys, getting to share. It's let's be honest, we're not curing cancer, right? Avatar is not changing and making the world, nuclear war disappear or anything like that, but it's something silly. But it's something that we all kind of came together, all of us from such different backgrounds, and it was like instant friendship.
Oh yeah.
And it was so, I can't describe
Well,
it. I can't
especially
describe
at that
feeling.
point, because there really was this sense that this was something punk rock almost happening.
Yeah.
That, like, full disclosure, I worked at Nickelodeon. So for me, it was, like this was something that was happening, and I would kind of see it brewing, and the idea that, not everybody got it, like was so, like it was so clearly, and you guys know this more than anybody, that like there was this like sense of like, does Nickelodeon even appreciate like what this is? And so there really was this sense of like, if you met somebody who really got it and appreciated it, it was like, oh my God, I want to talk about it, And I was seeing that on like so many different, fronts, and in ways that nobody wanted to talk about SpongeBob. No,
Oh, of
nobody wanted
course,
to talk
right?
about,
Yeah, whole different
like,
level.
like nobody wanted to talk about Fairly Odd Parents in that deep way, that like, like the passion that was coming through, and the fan art. You guys are talking about DeviantArt. That was like my introduction to the world of fan art and fan fiction, and so much creativity that was happening. So those connections, yeah, it was really special.
Mm-hmm.
I like how
Harry
Kevin's.
Potter. We're like, everybody likes
Yeah.
Harry Potter, or Star Wars. Like this was like our thing for a little bit.
It was
Right.
niche, so it was even cooler, right?
Yeah.
Made us even cooler.
Yeah, that's what we're the old people. We're the old people now.
Oh no.
Oh, we liked it before it was on Netflix.
That's right. That's
When
right.
you actually had to tune in at a specific time.
Isn't that nuts? You think about that now? And
Yeah.
that's a great thing. I have so many thoughts, and I don't want to. I'd love to let you guys, start off
No.
the bat, but I have so many thoughts about the new show, and I
Yeah.
don't take up too much time. But just, I'm so curious to know, because my measure of success for this Netflix series really hinges upon who was this ultimately really made for. And I guess they could be cheaters and say both, but what I mean is, was this made for people like us who've seen the show, those people who during 2020 discovered the show and watched the whole animated series and want a new experience for the story, the new version of it? Or was this made to attract new people to the story? And was it successful if it was made for the one group or the other?
Like from Netflix standpoint, they have to have approached it like, we need both, because I
Right.
think to make something that expensive,
Mhm.
you kind of have to feed both beasts in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Whether or not they were successful, I mean, that's the thing. I will say real quick, because I'm more interested in what you guys have to say. But having not worked at Nickelodeon for such a long period of time, I was like looking forward to like just enjoying this as a fan, like just to watch this like purely like, oh, now I can just be a fan without any knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes. I haven't talked to Mike and Brian. Like, I don't know what, I don't know the guys who made this show. So it's like really great to just like, oh, I'm just going to enjoy it. And yet sadly, because I spent so much time in this world, I wasn't able to do that. So I'll just say very quickly, I was not able to turn my brain off while watching the show. I was deconstructing it the whole time as an adaptation specifically, right? So
Right.
like that's like
Me
I'm dying to talk to people who have never watched the show
Right.
and hear what they have to say, because that is a great question, Kevin. Like,
Yeah.
does it work if you've never seen the show? I don't know.
Right. Because inevitably, you see it's number one on Netflix right now, right? Because everybody's obviously, the interest is there. Is that going to be sustained over time like One Piece? And unfortunately, I'm going to have to make a lot of comparisons to the One Piece live action and the success that it experienced.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to compare those.
And why that was successful or why this, may be compared to that or not, which is interesting. But yeah, it'd be what is the scuttlebutt? What are all the kids these days saying? Is there anyone gone online to see what anyone's saying? Like, oh,
I've tried very hard to
awesome.
tune most of it out, but I can't. I must admit, I've heard a few small things, but I was like, I want to talk to you guys first, and then as soon as we get off, I'm gonna like read everything.
Okay. So who wants to go first?
As a quick disclaimer, the only thing I would say is I'm not young enough to have TikTok, so I don't know what people are saying these days. I'm
on YouTube. I watch the YouTubers, so like that's what pops up in my feed is like.
Yes, gotcha. There you go.
So and I'll say real quick, I've seen a spectrum already, like just from the screen caps. Like I haven't watched any of the videos, but just from the little, Kevin, what are those called? Those little banner images,
thumbnails.
The thumbnails.
Yeah.
Like it's ruined a lot of people's childhoods, and it's also the best thing they've ever seen. So
oh no.
Okay. Oh, what'd you say, Anthony? What are you gonna?
Anthony, yeah.
Oh, the only thing I was gonna say is I don't know. So like obviously I have so many memories with family, friends, growing up with this show. And as the years have gone by, I've seen how, it attracts new people. They're shocked that I've seen the OG. And I'm just like by nature, I'm just such a passionate person. And it goes back to what Dave was saying earlier, where it was really nice and really special to feel really close to the community because we were so passionate on a different level. Uh, I haven't been in many fandoms that had that much dedication to it. But yeah, no, it's very interesting seeing where we are now in 2024, and I'm a little nervous to see what people are how they're going to view Netflix's adaptation. I actually had to binge all of it before today, just in preparation for discussion, because I mean, not that any of us can get spoiled. However, I
Right.
did want to just be familiar with what we're getting into. So,
Sure.
but yeah, I have a lot of thoughts.
Well, let's give a
someone
quick,
else-
let's give a quick, because, like I'm not interested in like good or bad or these kinds of things.
Yeah.
I think that's irrelevant. Did you enjoy yourself?
I did. I came in with no expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised. And I think what I appreciated the most is that there were a lot of subtle nods that you really had to like listen. And if you missed that one name, like you would never think about it again. But as for us, like I'm sure if we all sat down in the same room, we would all hear the exact same thing,
Who's on?
and we'd admit, yes, perfect example. We would immediately look to each other, and just get teary eyed, start tear bedding at that moment. So I really I see where they definitely fine picked a lot of details that they tried to comb in the episode. So I was very surprised by that personally.
Yeah. How are you feeling so far, Kevin?
There, just like Anthony said, there were moments, especially more so in the beginning than the end, and we can get to that eventually.
Mhm.
Where I just had this huge, big, dumb, happy grin on my face. It just kept popping up. I hate the 2010 movie. And I think everybody can kind of get on board with me. This wasn't the 2010 movie.
Right.
The casting, everybody looked like they should. The casting was amazing for most everybody. They looked like the characters, like the silhouettes looked like the characters. I couldn't believe the guy playing Sokka, how much he reminded me of Sokka.
Especially
The
Sokka.
costumes, they were the right colors. And as we learned, even like I said with One Piece, even if they look like people walking around in cosplay, there's something that puts a big grin on your face about that. The way that everybody looks the way they should, even though it's live action. It works.
Mhm.
And there was so much fun about seeing parts of this animated series made in live action. And I didn't even mind the fact that I knew this is a 20 episode season that they're cramming into 8 episodes. I knew they weren't going to hit everything. I knew they were going to
Right.
change things. And I didn't
Right.
have a problem with a lot of the way that they've shifted things. They put Jet into Omashu, et cetera, et cetera. I thought that was smart. But there's other issues that at the end of the day, my final assessment is, and like I said, we can talk more details later. I'll let Nadar go next, but
This is the
at the
stuff
end
I
of the
live
day,
for.
my final assessment of it is this is not the superior adaptation of this story. It still isn't.
Mhm.
And like I said, I'm happy. I liked it. I enjoyed my time with it. But to borrow a phrase from the kids of today, for me, ultimately, it was mid.
Mm,
Oh, jeez.
that's gonna be brutal.
Not to be the Debbie Downer of the group. I did have fun.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, no. You're fine.
Yeah. But don't you feel like there's no way? Do you still think that there could be an ultimate adaptation? Because I feel like one of the things that kept coming up for me was like, this just makes you really appreciate the cartoon. Like
It
like
does.
watching, there's so many scenes where you're like,
Mhm.
oh, this is really nice.
Well,
But man, that
maybe
cartoon, huh?
I'll just jump into it right now. Here's the thing that I found was the ultimate issue for me. There's a way that the story progresses that gives the characters' developments payoff in the animated show. For instance, revealing Aang's backstory of why he ran away from the air nomads later in the series has an impact at the time that it occurs.
Storm, yeah.
Right? Same thing with Zuko.
Mhm.
I felt in the Netflix series, Zuko is made to be sympathetic way too early because we all know he's a victim of his father. His father is way too prevalent. He was kept back as this mystery figure, right, for a long time. Even
Right.
someone like Zhao, or I'm not, am I thinking right? Zhao, General Zhao?
Mhm.
Admiral Commander, yeah.
Right.
He,
Depending on what,
he,
episode.
they bring Azula into the picture into this so early that really everything he does, he's not a threat. There's no payoff at the end between him and Zuko because he's not a threat. He's just a middleman for Azula. You know what I mean? There's all these little things. They shifted things around time-wise. It's not that they didn't include them, but they shifted them around time-wise that it doesn't feel like the character moments are earned when they occur. So when Aang has his conversation with Zuko after he captures him as the Blue Spirit, well, I already know Zuko's a pretty nice guy. There's no tension here for me in this conversation. Because I knew that already, or
That's my question that I can't
Yeah.
answer for myself either. Is it's so hard for us to turn our brain off and know
right,
what it could have been, and the emotions that we felt, because that's
Right.
the thing that I kept coming up for me is, you know, there's that, like that scene, especially when I remember when I first watched the series, you know, that moment when Aang says, like, you know, I used to be friends with
right.
people in the Fire Nation. Like, do you think we could have been friends? Like, it's
Mhm.
so powerful. Like you said, like when it happens, because they've had all this kind of history up until that point.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know that it's like if you don't know that and you're not like, I feel like then like it's up to the responsibility of the show people to make new issues and new story elements that pay off in different ways.
As Kevin stated that when he was watching this series, he has this big dumpy grin on his face. I was really excited that here and now we have Avatar. The Avatar has returned to us. It doesn't matter the capacity or the mediation that was used to put it together or how it is now. Because I have a major background in acting, and I cannot turn my brain off, just like you, Dave. My first thought is they better not mess this up. And I don't know if you guys had that thought, but I hope Netflix doesn't mess it up. Okay, we start seeing all the casting. Okay. They're going in the right direction. But as I was watching the episodes, and like I said, theater background, I'm looking at the background of all the scenery. At most times, it seems theatrical. Like some of the sets were can be used on stage. For instance, in the Marshall, when they brought up the wall, I saw the wall go up. I'm like, well, that doesn't look like an actual wall. It looks like something that was patterned together that tech people would make, because I've seen it done before. This series, y'all, it seems to be, in my opinion, shot through a narrow lens. When you watch any other movie or series, especially if you spend a lot of money on it, you see the expansion of everything around you. I mean, Cave of Two Lovers in the Netflix series looks like a bunch of closets with lights. As I stated, this is my theatrical mindset.
Dude, I love that you're saying this. We
right.
are on so similar wavelengths with like that. Go ahead.
Yes, and during the fighting scenes with anybody, you'll see somebody run that way right past the camera, run that way, versus an entire lot, like city streets of people running, and there's turmoil everywhere, and then things are blowing up. Everything is compacted, so it doesn't look natural. More so, like a Narnia camera was used, I am enjoying, and what I've read a few. I'm enjoying the martial arts of the show. I'm really in that second episode with Kiyoshi. I'm a big fan of Kiyoshi. So when I saw Avatar Kira, I said, please don't make her look so thin. In the fight scene, I'm screaming now. And I said maybe a large portion of the money, the budget went into
I
that
actually
shot
think I
right
would agree with
there
you on that.
for the entire episode of episode 2. But
Which shot? What scene?
It's episode 3.
when Kiyoshi came in and she started bending all 4 elements,
That was
yeah,
like poop your pants
I thought
awesome.
again with the narrow lens, now we all know how powerful the Avatar is. So when the Avatar is in the Avatar state, you're moving mountains, you moving oceans, you splitting continents. So when she did her thing, and maybe she was she were trying to be controlled, but again with the narrow lens, when she blasted them, they didn't go too far. I'm expecting them to go flying over a couple of hills. Like, this is Avatar Kyoshi. She's aggressive. You know, she doesn't care, whatever it takes. That's her character. But overall, and I'm going to be very brief. Overall, I'm still excited that this has returned to us, this entity that we all love so much, you know, and it is a life changer because I met a young lady who was going to commit suicide at one of the conventions, and she couldn't get into the room, and I was able to get her into the room, and I talked to her friend, and she said that she watched the show and it changed her life. So I got her to sit up front, and that's when Dante Bosco was up on the panel one of those years, and Avatar Mom asked who wants to read, if you remember the reading of the comic sessions. And I pointed at her, like, you know, and she went upstairs, so she was in tears. She got to sit up there with Dante Bosco. She thanked me. She came to dinner with the Spaghetti Factory and everything. And we stayed in touch for many years, and her life went on. She went to college, she graduated, and she went on with her life. The show changes people. It changes me. Like, it's made me more humble, you know. But overall, I'm enjoying the show. I mean, there's some struggling with the acting, just a little bit, you know, just a little bit of struggling with the acting. The transitions are a little off from scene to scene, but again, can't turn the brain off because of what we know about the show.
Right.
But overall, I mean, I like it.
I had the goofy grin too. Like I like the first episode, I think I was smiling through most of it. The comparison, and I've made this before with the first Harry Potter movie. When I saw the first Harry Potter movie, which many people sort of criticize as being like so faithful to the source material to the point of, you know, there's like, well, what was the point? You know, like you literally just adapted it, right? And it wasn't until the third movie that there was a little more flourish and creativity and all that. But I was like, when I watched the first Harry Potter movie, I was like, I feel the way I feel like when I'm watching like my friends' kids in a school play. Like, you know, like it's like, oh, there's Billy, and like, oh, there's Jenny. Like look at them doing their best, like, you know, like on stage. And that's how I felt about like seeing all the characters again, you know, like you know, like you're right that, like, you know, you say the Avatar return, because I do think what I'll give the creators of this show credit, they clearly were fans and they clearly cared about the characters. And, you know, I will enjoy nitpicking it because I love to do it.
Sure.
But big picture, like, you get the sense that like they care about it, and they're, you know, and they got it, which, you know, take or leave, you know, the feelings about the movie. What was it, 2010, 20 whatever?
I believe 2010.
Yeah.
It was a dark time. I don't remember.
But like you know, like my big takeaway on that movie, you know, as someone who was like really close while it was happening, well, you know, was the sense that they just don't get it, you know, like that it was like, as much as, you know, I honestly believe that M. Night Shyamalan was like passionate about the show. Like, I think he was a fan of the show, but I don't think he like totally got like what it was about. And so the execution kind of reflects that, right? There's a lot of changes that when you look at the changes, that they feel arbitrary. They feel like, well, you know, this doesn't really make sense with the philosophy of the show. And I think for the most part, as far as I can tell, I mean, I'm sure someone's going to tear this apart at some point. But it felt like the philosophy of the show carried over to the original show, to this show. And I feel like most of the characters reflected who they were for the most part. Some of them are simplified. Some of them are, you know, like we've seen some of the discussion about, you know, the arcs perhaps not being as nuanced as they were in the show. But from like a bird's eye perspective, at least, it's like, you know, if you squint, you're like, yeah, that looks just like the ones we know.
I'll give you an example of, I think, my favorite. This is weird. This is the dichotomy I feel about the whole thing. Right. And again, please, nobody hate me. I'm coming from the approach that I enjoyed my time with the series. I really did.
We can't hate you. It's impossible.
Oh, thank God. Okay, good. So
no one can criticize a sibling like we can't. Like, like it's like our family, so we're
You can-
allowed to.
You can
know.
take the Mickey out of me if you want. That's fine. No, but the moment that I wasn't expecting, because I didn't, maybe did they ever announce that May and Ty Lee were going to be in the series?
Maybe like a day before or something like that, but
Okay,
not-
because that shocked me. I knew nothing about that. Boom, they cut to a shot, and there they are.
Yes.
And I was just like, I was like, you're kidding me. No freaking way. Wow. Oh,
Okay, wait. Who'd you say?
Did you not
Oh,
reach that
he doesn't
episode?
know maybe yet because it might be a couple episodes in.
Oh yeah, I'm still on. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
Oh,
going.
But to your
I'm
point, like
getting to
what
5 today. I'm on 5 today.
what
Well,
it
it should
speaks
be at
to is
5.
that they
I just
rather
ruined it for
than
Nadar. I'm so
waiting
sorry.
till season 2 to I'll be honest, I was expecting Toph to show up because I was like, at that point, I was like, oh, they're doing their own thing. Like they're bringing stuff
Yeah.
in a lot earlier. So who knows? Maybe
Oh,
we'll,
Top.
So yeah, okay, yeah. Plug your ears, Nadar.
yeah,
But
Top
don't-
they,
showed up. Oh, thanks.
they
That's
cast
my
them,
girl.
they show
That's
up.
my girl right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are, but unfortunately, the other side of that coin for me though is that it's kind of pointless to have them there. They didn't do anything. They don't even I don't even think we learned Ty Lee's name. They don't even say it.
if they said it,
You know
it
what?
might
I
have
think
been
you're right.
once.
They don't say it. So it's like they're just
Okay.
yeah,
there.
they're just friends. Like they're
So
the
if
friends.
I'm imagining if I'm someone who doesn't know anything about the show, I'm looking at them, I'm like, why do we have some girls with some very elaborate costumes standing there talking to Azula? Who are they? Am I supposed to know who they are? I guess the people who know this show know who they are, but I'm not in on the secret.
Right.
What's the deal?
Right.
So I feel like that was something thrown in for us. So on that front, that's why I feel like the show is a success for people who have already seen the series, but I'm not so sure it's a complete success for people who haven't.
And the young lady that plays May, I really felt like thus far, I really felt that she's very connected with her character, with the animated character May.
She delivered
And
her lines pretty good, yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. What do you guys think about which character is pulling it off?
Well,
Which character?
I was thinking about what Kevin said, like there were moments, like just from a visual standpoint, you were like I think Aang is the hardest character to pull off
Mm-hmm.
because it's all about his head shape, right? Like it's all about his head. It's all about that innocence. It's all about the energy. I'll be honest, like I think most of the cast were really good. Like I think like Aang is a kind of a thankless role in a lot of ways. And I think that kid's killing it. I think
You look just like him, by the
he's
way.
so charming. Like he just
You look
captures
just
it.
like him.
I've heard people criticize the kind of cringe dialogue. Like, remember at Appa, he gives this big kind of exposition talk to Appa in the first scene.
Mm.
And there's a whole bunch of scenes throughout the series. I'll spoil a little bit. Yue later on in the Northern Water Tribe gives these exposition speeches to explain to people. It's nothing. It's
But
everything.
look,
you do,
nothing
Nate,
like that.
from the show.
Like
But the
it's
problem
like,
is,
watch the live action movie.
All of this is in season 1. Oh my god!
it gets
Yeah,
oh yeah, they
yeah.
did the whole first season of the
Remember,
show.
like as you know, I've spent time in the library studying the spirits of the
There-
thing.
there's
So
there's no
like,
actor alive who can deliver lines like that.
Sire, I have good news. As you know, I conducted a raid on the Great Library, which most said didn't even exist.
Get on with it.
I have found scrolls in the library. We are deciphering them. But I believe they may contain information as to where the ocean and moon spirits live in this world. With this information, we could bring down the Northern Water Tribe city. We could show the world the true strength of fire.
I am pleased. Well, come on the job.
yeah,
And
it's
have
hard.
it come across natural. Do you know what I'm saying? So I see
Yeah.
people criticize the kid acting like, guys, you can't criticize him for that. That's not
And
his
I actually think that's where we're going to be more forgiving because we're so familiar with the world.
yeah.
I think I think someone coming into this stuff cold, it's just like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. Like if you're not into this stuff, there's a lot of info dumping. There's a lot of just like, it's not easy to do this kind of stuff. I was actually just watching afterwards. I watched Dune, the first Dune. I mean, the new Dune movie. And that's another, like, there's a lot of material to cram into even a 2.5-hour movie. And that movie is like, it's really bold, like how much they don't tell you and how much that they're just like, yeah, we're not gonna explain this. Like, just go with it. I think with stuff for kids, it's a little harder. So they, there is that, like, they can't help but want to explain things. And
Mhm.
I don't care what anybody says. The
Yeah.
internet can fight me on this. I think the guy playing Zuko's great.
Yeah.
I agree. It's I really feel the essence of Dante's voice, through him, and it's great. Like I feel like that's not an easy thing to pull off, and yeah, I do agree with you with that.
Yeah,
for
and I
sure.
agree with Kevin that, like, they definitely soften him sooner. But again, it's like we gotta have to choose our battles, like
Right.
Sure.
like I remember when the movie came out, they were like, "There's no way they could do the top knot," like that's not, there's no actor's gonna want to do the top knot, and I was like, no, like he is Zuko, like they're for the most part he is Zuko, and I think the sort of softness of seeing Zuko in some of the scenes, I kind of like some of them, like it's again, like if I can turn off the show and the satisfaction of like a long 20 episode arc, I think they kind of do a good job of showing the complexity of him
Yeah, there's
in a shorter amount of time.
a few new scenes they wrote between him and Iroh during
Mhm.
his son's funeral that I thought were really
Those are great.
excellent, actually.
Oh yeah.
And I really appreciated them adding that in there. And I thought that
That's
was
actually when I probably got the most like
Yeah.
choked up watching it, was the Lutan sound, the scenes
Mhm.
with the
Yeah.
Iroh son.
hmm
which, yeah, so there was a lot to really, like I said, appreciate and like about it.
I
You
think
know?
the hardest stuff is always like the blue spirit. Like I always like I thought that with the film too, where it's like they love this stuff so much, and they're so like, so that we're gonna force this in no matter what, right? Because it's like this is such a fan favorite moment,
Mhm.
but there's like no setup to it. It just sort of happens. It doesn't have the weight
Right.
of
Mhm.
what that turning point in the show really is, and this
Mhm.
idea of like not even knowing who he is for a little bit, and like I don't even think they show you where he gets the mask from, or like it just feels like very random.
It's in Omashu on a stall.
Is it?
He
Okay,
and
good.
Anger having his fight with the cloth and stuff like that.
Okay, good.
It's in
That
the
would be a good place.
background.
That's a good
And
place
I
to
didn't
see.
even know that.
Yeah.
I found that online, by the way. Someone else
Oh,
pointed
okay,
it
nice.
out.
good.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, I'll go back.
posted that. I did post that. I said
Oh, yeah, you
found it
did.
because they was in the marketplace in episode 3.
That was you. You posted
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That was me, and I was like, I said when they showed the other mask close up, I said, "Here come the blue spirit. I'm gonna keep an eye out."
Yeah.
And showing up in the background, it was a little blurry. I was like, there's that mask."
Nice.
Yeah.
Picture of it.
There
So-
was, like you said, Dave, there was an attention to detail. They clearly knew that fans were going to be watching. I don't know if you caught, and again, maybe Nader hasn't got to that point, but Zuko and Iroh, they're going around before they hire June. They go into the bar and they're asking after, like, if you guys seen, the waterbenders, because they don't want to say the Avatar outright, and they're asking everybody. And the bartender's like, "Oh yeah, no, I didn't see waterbenders, but I saw the Avatar." And everybody, there's a little conversation in the people in the bar, and I don't know if you caught it, but one guy said, "Yeah, he really helped out those guys in the canyon."
Yes.
Did you hear that?
I heard that.
There's
Yes.
something to
yes.
that
I know.
effect, and they acknowledged that episode. Happened off screen.
Yeah.
Thought
How
that
do you
was
guys
cute.
feel about like the scenes that are like fully cloth new creations, like the scenes where there's not like a one-to-one adaptation happening, like the opening scene of the first episode and the scene with it's actually kind of a little repetitive actually when they have Zula do the fake out.
Does anybody want to go first, or I'll jump in on that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I'm not in favor of having had so much with Ozai and Azula in this season. I kind of get where they're going with it, but I don't feel like it was the time to bring those in.
That's
I
right.
don't feel like Ozai Ozai's just a guy now. Obviously, he's the big bad. He'll be defeated someday, but he's just a dude. He's not scary to me. He's pitting his kids against each other. He's a jerk. I don't like him. He's a bad guy. You know what I mean? He's kind of a scenery chewer bad guy. He's not a threat to me. Do you know what I mean? And having Azula come in so early, I didn't care for her scenes
Yes.
on that front. And again, I don't know if that's my pollution of knowing the series. I just don't, because we see what he does to her now in these new scenes they wrote. We see how she's being manipulated. And now I don't feel scared of her. I feel sorry for her.
Right.
Just like I feel sorry for Zuko. And now
I
I'm
don't-
hoping, like, I'm starting to think, like, in my non-fan brain who knows all this, oh, I hope Zuko and Azula realize this and team up against him and stop him and their father together. You know what I mean? That's kind of, but I don't think that's where the story should be going. Azula should be an absolute psychopath on her own merits.
Yes, yes.
At this stage in the game, at least. So there were scenes, like I said, the Lieutenant scene was great. I love the opening, like you said, where they showed this stuff we never got to see, the big attack. The action was great. It was fun. They clearly put most of their budget in the front of the series as opposed to the back, as Nadar will discover. And so that stuff was good, but there were other things that I thought they were kind of cramming in there that I'm like, you guys don't have enough time as it is. I don't know why you need to rearrange the story in this fashion, but that's me.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kevin, 100%. I'm waiting for, and we're all used to Azula demonstrating a high level of mental health, disability, aggressiveness, anger, just pure. I always thought Azula was like this evil entity, like her spirit was just so tarnished, and I'm not getting that. And she seems slightly wicked, but not as we know her, you see. And for her I'm waiting for her to just attack Ty Lee and May with some type of verbal persecution, but I'm not getting that at all from her. And don't spoil this for me. I'm hoping sometime this season, I'm hoping to see the Blue Lightning. Since they already shown her, and I think that the regular audience had Netflix production staff and the writers had they robbed the audience of seeing Ozai and Azula, I think the anticipation level of seeing them later on would have been great. Like maybe towards the end of season 1, you want to throw a silhouette of Ozai, maybe his evil, wicked laughter, or maybe there's talks about Azula. Maybe there's a picture, a painting on the wall. Somehow include them without showing them, oh, I can't wait to see what she looks like, or I can't wait to see what he looks like. So we're watching these episodes, and we see that everything was kind of just smushed together like a big turkey sandwich with all the layers included, just compressed, versus just gradually bringing everything in. And you talked about what some of the people are saying in the public. I've been reading and I've been watching, and a lot of people are just, I don't know what they expect. Like, you had a lot of fans tearing the show apart. They're talking about the wardrobe. Somebody stated that this looks like one big cosplay. Okay, well, so what? I mean, the costumes are fine.
Yeah.
It just needs to be tweaked a little bit. But overall, as I stated before earlier, in our discussion, I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's just little things. It's a little thing. I'm watching this show and I go, oh, okay, I'll let that slide. Like I can do something about it,
Well, we can't have it all. You just
No.
Like,
We can't
there
have
is
it
a
all.
choose your battles to set. Like, I agree. The sets to me are probably like, if I'm going to be like, if they had more money, spend a little bit more on the sets, because like that to me, the one thing I will say about the film is like they clearly spent a lot of money on the sets. Like, like that, the world building felt a little bit more like the attention to deal. It might not have been consistent with the show, the initial cartoon, but they definitely executed everything, to like a real logic. Like you could like zoom in on things and be like, wow, look at all the detail and stuff.
Yeah.
Where I think on this show, you don't want to zoom in too closely on some of those sets. Like,
they tend to have very big little budgets, as I like to say.
I like the mill shoots when Sokka and Katara. I thought that particular shot was amazing when they were inside of the mail chute at Amashu.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that looks good, and you kind of see the whole city from afar. It was some type of CGI shot, but that looked good. Like, I enjoyed that small piece that they included when they jumped off that mail chute into another chute.
Yeah, it must have been interesting to like have the budget conversations about where they're going to spend the money, because like you said, like it is a little inconsistent at places, but some things look really great. Like, there's certain scenes where you're like, that looks fantastic, and then other stuff like now I'm watching a TV show, right? Like, like the fact that we see as much Appa, I think that for me is like, as like someone who knows like reads a lot about film, you know, like I was watching a whole thing about like Paddington, and like they're like, yep, every time Paddington's on screen, we had to budget out this, you know, because that's like so expensive, you know, and anytime Paddington's interacting with another character, that's even more money, right? So like you got these kids riding on Appa, flying around on Appa. Like even the live action M. Night Shyamalan movie barely showed Appa. They barely
Right.
showed Momo,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
they didn't have the money for that. So the
Right.
fact that
Speaking
we're on
of
a
the
TV
movie,
budget, it's
yeah,
amazing. On
no,
a TV budget, they got away with all that.
that's a good point. So, that's so funny you mentioned that. In the movie, they did not show Appa a lot. What I remember from, what I remember of Appa from that dark time was Kevin making a meme on DeviantArt where they zoomed in on Appa's face, and it was there's like this young boy who's like terrified, and that's all I remember. Appa remember. I that's it's just so funny how like, and I know Kevin knows exactly what I'm talking about. That was a post
Yeah.
from so
There's
long
a
ago,
that
and
is part of a long trend. Like someone recently posted a meme with the recent Little Mermaid movie where they showed like Flounder the fish. And you know,
oh
like it's
no,
like, you know, like how it
right,
It's like
started, how it
that's
ended, you know.
right, right,
it's really scary when you make it that realistic, right?
right. Oh geez,
Yeah, they maintain it was nice. They maintained that's like you said, the people are complaining about the costumes, but the fact that they maintained the cartoon aesthetic, even though, yeah, it doesn't look real world, it still maintains the visual feel
It
more
did.
so than the realistic designs of the 2010 film, I thought. And I don't hate, here's the thing, I hate the 2010 film. I don't hate the art direction of the 2010 film, minus Appa.
okay,
The
gotcha.
costumes, the sets, I thought were all well made. They were competent people working on this movie. But like Dave said, they didn't get what encased and made you smile. Oh, this is what I remember
Well,
seeing
something
on
gets
TV.
lost. Like I hadn't watched the movie since the day it came out. Uh,
Yeah, which is probably for the best.
yeah,
I want
which is
okay.
which is
I
annoying.
once I
But
once
I
I had
looked up,
some
but go ahead.
I'm sorry. I once had some
I
young
was
friends over. Or I said some friends and their kids were over, and I was telling them about the whole thing about Avatar because they were curious because they had seen it on Netflix, right? And so I showed them scenes from the 2010 movie because I was complaining about it. And I kept showing them scenes and this scene and this scene. And the youngest one of them, do you know what he said to me finally after a while? He says, "Can we do something fun instead?"
Oh.
Oh
Well, that's the
no,
specificity of the word fun there is the key thing for me, because
Yeah.
that's like what I realized. Like I looked after watching this show, there was a specific, like I wanted to see a specific scene because I was interested in specifically about. So I went to the set of the film when I was working on the adaptation of the movie adaptation as a book. They invited me to the set in Philadelphia, and that's the one thing like I was like really impressed by, was like getting to walk around the
Mhm.
Northern Water Tribe, you know, environments, and like the
Mhm.
fact that they built all of it, and you could walk into rooms and there were
Mhm.
tables and chairs and like, you know, like furniture and all this stuff that you could like touch, and it was like, and everything was designed. Some
Right.
artists like went
Right.
in and
Right.
weaved, you know, made
Mhm.
patterns, wrote letters that, you know, none of it, and I was like, none of this stuff's gonna even like barely be shown on screen. And yet, so then you can do all that detail, you can do all of that work, but it all kind of became bland and sort of monotone. And so like the clip that I saw when I went up and looked it online, I was like, you see like Aang's outfit and everything, and you're like, it's so white, like it's just so like
Mhm.
one color, and it just all kind of, it's just unmemorable. And I think one of the great things about, you know, cartoons is that you actually have to design this stuff to be memorable and distinctive. And I think that's one of the, you know,
Mhm.
it's actually why, in a way, like, you know, as much as I enjoyed the show, it's all kind of a fool's errand to try to adapt a cartoon into live action. Like it just, you know, like I can feel of both minds about this, that it's like I enjoyed it, but should it exist? Probably not.
right.
Right. It's like the Ty Lee and May scene. It's like I love that, but it didn't serve us anything, you know? So I have a question for all of you guys, actually, and what you think about the fact that it being compressed. Did you feel that the world felt the same that you saw in the first season? Did it feel as epic, as big, or did it just feel
No,
kind of smaller?
you were saying about the confinedness of the staging and stuff. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I will admit that I kind of like, as soon as I started seeing that there were some differences and they were making some different like choices, I started saying like, I have to turn my brain off and say like, because the biggest thing that we didn't even talk about, like one of the biggest differences is this whole idea that Aang has to go to these avatar temples and that activates the avatar state, and that this is this entryway of meeting the past avatars. And the idea that like Kyoshi really fights the fight for him, and like I feel like they kind of pulled from like the series finale, like the whole scene where Aang has to like talk to all the former avatars and they're all kind of like giving him dubious advice. Didn't it feel like they were kind of pulling from that a little bit? And
Yeah, forgive me, it's been a while since I've watched it. Did that not happen in the first season? I know Kyoshi's did, right? Or no? Or she just took over him,
he
didn't
goes
she?
into the avatar state, but does he literally become
Talk to her?
Kyoshi? Like, yeah, like I don't think there's I don't think we ever see a conversation with Kyoshi
No.
as
I
Kyoshi
didn't-
until the end of the series.
Okay. Okay, so I wondered
But
about
maybe I'm
that.
remembering.
So there's another thing they moved forward, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They give a much bigger role to the past avatars in this TV series.
Yes, for sure. Just piggybacking off of Kevin real quick. I feel well, so I haven't been following the news and the rumors, and I didn't know what to expect. Of course, none of us can get quote spoiled about the base story, but as I watched it, all those little things like May entirely, I I felt like when I was watching it that the world was not as big as the cartoon, and I was I felt like I was being pulled in a lot of different directions because like, oh, that's clearly from season two. But no, we the mindset is it's season one, but they are addressing these issues that I know are important. However, they're just cramming it all in. So it's kind of tough. I don't feel like the world is going to be as fleshed out as we would all dream and love it to be. Um, but it is what it is. And yeah.
I watched the Game of Thrones TV series and I never read the books, but like when you watch that
Okay.
show, the first couple of seasons, it's like, well, we have to send a message to this other city. So we're going to have to send like, a bird, to fly this message over them. That could take a couple of weeks. It's like, all right, okay, we're going to take, and then it's like, oh, we're going to travel to this place. It's like, all right, well, that's going to take a month for us to travel,
Right.
to this other city. But by the fourth season, like suddenly they're just like hopping around town to town and they're just like, yeah, the logistics of like how far these things are doesn't seem to matter as much as it did in those first couple of seasons.
Sure.
We can the Netflix live action series can really use the Game of Thrones budget.
Wow.
That's true
Or
too.
should I
Yeah.
say a Game of Thrones budget? But to answer your question, Kevin, I don't know if I can answer that question simply because we all watched the Netflix series with the back thought of Avatar: The Last Airbender animation series.
Right.
A person that never seen this show before, I think personally they will enjoy it. I'm not sure in regards to the age bracket which one would enjoy it the most, but I think both will enjoy it because they don't have any past feelings about the show at all, so they don't know what's being thrown in it. By the way, when they was going to that cave, I asked myself, I wonder if Chong is going to be in there, and yeah, I started hearing the guitar and everything. I said, okay, it was a little strange.
It was.
Yeah, it's
It looked like it was in the
Darn.
closet, like everybody was just hanging out in this dark.
right. No, so that's the thing too. So like season two of the cartoon was my favorite season. Even though I know most people like adored season three, rightfully so. I just in my life during that time, season two was very impactful, and it will always be my favorite. But that's the thing. Like they were showing so many things from season two that I just was kind of taken aback. I wasn't expecting it. So it's just yeah, it was very interesting, and also it was brought to my attention that it's rated PG, the Netflix adaptation. Which watching it, I don't feel like it should be G. Yeah,
They burned so many people and actually showed it.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
which
That's
I
why,
loved, by the way, because that's what would happen if you're fighting a firebender.
Right.
But holy
Right.
cow, yeah, okay, that was I guess that was just PG makeup enough or something, or they paid off the right people. I don't know.
No blood was shown as they were burning the people.
Right. Which I
Your
mean,
favorite
that's.
line.
Maybe.
Well, I was just gonna say real quick. There's a quick line where someone says like, oh, there's gonna be a fire spinning festival. He's like, oh man, my eyebrows just grew back from the last time. Like, what I was like, that's a nice little touch. I don't remember if that was ever in the show.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw that. I was looking at Zuko, and I was like, wait a minute, does he have two full eyebrows? I think I took a snapshot of it and sent it to some people. I was like, this boy got the whole eyebrow. And then Eric Hufana commented, he said, well, that must be a hell of a black eye then versus a burnt one.
yeah,
I was like, I haven't even gone on the internet, but I can guarantee that 90% of the comments are about Zuko's scar.
Yeah. Yeah. It's on the right side though. Blah blah blah.
People
Yeah.
have a lot of opinions about that.
oh yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Hey, I got something for you guys. I'll give you a thought, and this goes back to my comparing it to One Piece and One Piece's success.
Yeah. Have you guys watched One Piece? I've only seen maybe 4 episodes.
Have you? No, oh, you guys haven't?
I've been hearing about it, but I've never seen it.
I would recommend it. It's highly enjoyable. And here's the
Would
thing.
recommend.
I'm not a huge fan of the manga or the anime. I have watched the anime up to a certain point. Into
I wonder if it's the same point
the
as
Impel
One Piece.
Down arc, I think, is as far as I got because I have a life I need to live. And
Sure.
I can't watch 10 billion episodes. I really, and this is, everybody can fight me on this because it's the truth. I think the live action adaptation is better than the anime.
Hmm.
And I've had to think about why is that?
Mhm.
Why is it that I think the One Piece, because they changed a lot in that adaptation. There's some things that are basic kept, but just like the Avatar show, they compressed things severely. They took a whole lot of
Right.
stuff out. But why did that work better for me and for obviously a lot of other people than what I'm feeling right now for the Avatar series? And this is the conclusion I kind of came to, and maybe you can see what you think about this. One Piece is not about the story. It's about the characters. I don't know if you've ever seen like a Dragon Ball Z or, any of those ones. What happens to that? You have characters and they're thrown in the same situation that repeats over and over again, right? Goku, because you haven't watched One Piece, I'm going to use the Dragon Ball comparison. Goku fights this enemy and such thing happens. And then the enemy becomes a friend. And then they go together and then they fight this new enemy. And then it's just the same thing over and over again. But you don't watch it because the story's compelling or it's taking you in a certain direction. It's the characters and their archetypes and their personalities that are mixing with each other. That's what makes One Piece so great. You're watching it because Luffy is Luffy and Zoro is Zoro, and they have their way that they interact with each other. And
Yeah.
that's what works. So you can change One Piece. You can put them into whatever adventure of the week you want. The characters are the same. Even though this thing has been going on for like 25 years, when it finally ends, Luffy will still be Luffy. His character's not going to change. And that's why I think the adaptation worked so well on Netflix. But what is Avatar? It's not that it isn't the characters, but Avatar has a beginning, a middle, and an end to their story. There's a flow and there's a way the characters grow, change, and progress.
Right.
So when you start changing that formula, it doesn't work as well anymore.
I think you're dead on. I mean, if you look at what the criticisms were, I only saw a little bit of the criticism before the show aired. And most of it was about the changes to Sokka and how,
Mhm.
Sokka starts off here and ends
Right.
up here. And there's along the way, there's some this, and same with Zuko, right?
Right. And when, like I said, when you start shifting those moments around and changing them, that's why I felt it wasn't, for me at least, as successful an adaptation, because Avatar is a sequential story focused tale as opposed to a character focused, put them into any situation. That's where the charm comes from, story.
Which I
Right.
just think the challenge just makes the challenge that much greater. I mean,
Right.
I was actually trying to think a little bit about that myself. And I love everything you said because I think that gives me a lot to chew on.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, I think and don't come at me, One Piece fans, but I feel like One Piece is never as serious as Avatar gets.
Yes.
So the tone of One Piece,
Very
although
different.
there are some serious threads and some emotional journeys and there's stuff that can make you cry and there's stuff that can make you feel some feelings. I don't think it ever gets as heavy as a world, right? There's a whimsy to the whole affair. What Aang has in common with was it Luffy? That's his name, Monkey
Yeah.
Luffy. You know, it's like it's the penguin sledding part of Aang, right? It's that sort of
Right.
like, you know,
Yeah.
it's that like,
Yeah.
you know, like whimsical, fun, and like you said, he maintains it the whole way. And when you were talking about it, it made me think about Eddie Izzard. He has this great routine about Scooby-Doo and like the sort of universal appeals of Scooby-Doo and why Scooby-Doo is just like this, like, you know, iconic thing across the world. Because at the end of the day, as long as Scooby and Shaggy are scared and hungry, we're good.
Right.
We're
Right.
good.
Right.
Like you just
Yeah.
got to maintain that, like,
Mhm.
zoinks. Oh, I'm so hungry. We're gonna have a Scooby snack. Zoinks. You know, as long as you get that right, you're golden, right?
Right.
And then the other one, yeah, Fred's kind of like this, Daphne's kind of like that, and
Because Shaggy and Scooby are interesting characters. They're two of the most major characters in American literature. Because, and I mean this sincerely, and I think it's fantastic, because they are cowards. They are cowardly characters. They believe in cowardice and sandwiches. And can you think of any in the whole realms of the English-speaking literature that are characters like that, cowardly characters that you identify with? Because you identify with, you're with them all the way. Go, Shaggy, go, Scooby. The rest of the guys who drive the van, fuck off.
characters that maintain that status quo constantly. I think it's a little bit easier to adapt.
Yeah. I think that's where the difference between, like I said, the two reactions for, you know, at least my reaction to the two series came from.
So overall, we all agree that we're enjoying the show for what it is, and the writers, the producers, and everything. I can imagine them sitting. Actually, I tried to imagine them as I watched the show. I tried to imagine them sitting at the first board meeting or what have you of the screenplay and looking at storyboards and things of that nature. And you had all these Netflix people, and then you have Mike and Brian. And I could just see them looking at the board. Wait, that's not what that's not what we did, Okay, I can deal with that. Okay. And as the seasons played out on the storyboards, I could just picture them like maybe twitching a little bit as things were just constantly changing in the storyboard. So
It's hard to
and
know
some
though,
people are
because
saying
like, I
they
don't think
see why they
they've come
left.
out publicly to say, you know, their feelings about anything. But, you know, on the flip of that, what I'll say is that sometimes creators don't like to do something twice. So I could just as easily imagine a scenario where they're like, well, we don't want to do the same thing over, so let's do it differently.
That failed for Attack on Titan, I can tell you that.
All right, guys.
Have you ever seen the movie they made of that?
Say again?
Have you ever seen the movie they made for Attack on Titan?
I have not.
The manga author?
But I've seen the Death Note movies.
Amazing,
that
awesome
Japan
story.
produced.
Yeah, the author of Attack on Titan, when they went to make the movie, he told them, don't make it like the manga. Don't make it like the show. Do something completely different.
Oh, really?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta catch up with the rest of these guys. But it has been
a real pleasure.
A pleasure talking with you all, reminiscing. I did had a few more things I wanted to get out, but when you're talking Avatar, it's never enough time in the world. So, but I appreciate the invite, Dave, Kevin, Anthony. It's always a pleasure. We got to do this again sometime.
Yes,
maybe
please.
over TV. I don't know.
That'd be wonderful.
But I have to go.
Okay, now we can talk about the ending. No.
Oh, but yeah, no, what Kevin was saying, yeah, I have to double down on that. Like, with Avatar the cartoon, like they often mentioned that there was an Avatar Bible that they had to stick with, like the concepts that they were not going to change. They knew that the story had a beginning and an end. And I just, they really stuck with that. Whereas like here, they have to like change and mold things the way they can to fit a time frame. And kind of just like a random tangent here, but I remember specifically, so us young, passionate fans, we were all over the place when it comes to shipping, not shipping, when it came to this, story plot line. I remember because the shipping wars were very intense during that era. I remember someone specifically, they were saying that they were gonna really freak out if Katara ends up being with Zuko, and then it was on DeviantArt. So let's see. So I was Zuko before I was Aang. So before I had premiered like shaving my head and being Aang, I had 2 Zuko costumes. One DeviantArt fan private messaged me and said, "Hey, look, I know you're just a fan. You're just a guy. I just need to vent." But then, like, this person was like, "I just need to vent as if you were Zuko. I'm sorry."
Like, I can't talk to Aaron Ehas, so I got to talk to you.
Exactly right. And so like they gave me this really long vent about, how could you like fall for Katara like that and this and that, or
Ooh, in character.
or
Like they were talking to you like in character.
right. But they gave me the disclaimer that, hey, I just need to let this out. And I said, you know what, I get it. We're very passionate. Like there is not enough time to address all the things that we could talk about. And it's just funny because like it's evoking a lot of feels. And I feel like I really need to watch it again. Binging it, things were rushed, and I was trying to process a lot really quickly just so that I could be ready for today. But I definitely want to give it another chance and kind of just turn off my brain, and hopefully I can enjoy it more.
Yeah, I always do that too. I watched the first season very very quickly, and then rewatched part of the first episode just before we got on, and I already was like, it's like that thing where it's just like, it's that shock to your system at first, and then you kind of go, okay, like, it gets easier to separate that this is its own thing and this is different, and it's you can enjoy these things for what they are.
Yeah.
Real quickly, just sort of in the one thing that was sort of proposed, like I saw a friend of mine say this online, and I was like, that's an interesting alternate reality now because it's too late. But what would you guys have thought if instead of adapting the cartoon, they kind of followed the Star Wars model but in reverse, where they say, the series is the series, the original series is the series, and now we're going to do a live action show that builds off it with like a different avatar, either in the future or in the past, with like just a completely new story.
I would have preferred that myself. I've actually been kind of arguing that for years. I think I did I'm trying to remember the name of the podcast, but someone wanted to talk to me for the puppet stuff, and we got on that same topic. And I was talking about, why do we do this? Why do we keep adapting the same story that worked well the first time over and over again? That'll never really match the heights of what came before. Why don't we? The Avatar cycle gives us the opportunity to go forward telling more stories in this big Middle Earth type world that has been created. We could go forward. And unfortunately, I also know the answer to that reason. Why? Marketing. Who sells the lunchboxes? Who is the brand recognizable characters that sell the toys? And it's Aang, it's Katara, it's Zuko, it's Sokka. So if you're branching off and you're doing something new with brand new characters, like even what they did with Korra, it's a struggle because you're introducing a whole new image to a franchise, right? It's, Star Wars without Darth Vader was Kylo Ren. They couldn't break away from that. We had to come up with somebody who looks like a Darth Vader to market a Darth Vader, right?
Right.
So there's that kind of handicap. So I know that's why we keep retelling this same story over and over again, because these are the proven characters that sell. These are who people kind of want to see. But I personally would have rather.
I got my Appa from Mall of America.
Exactly.
Could
you? The original Mall of America.
Oh. When you had, that's what these kids don't know is they only sold Avatar toys at one store in the entire country. You literally had to go there or know somebody.
They will never know.
No. The big ones, the small ones, the medium-sized ones.
Had to either stay.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's like a black market if people were like, I'm going to Mall of America.
Giving them away.
Was it Kings Island for a while?
Right, yeah, no, I remember.
Or was some theme park had them for a while too? I can't remember which one.
Mall of America has a a Nickelodeon theme park
Okay,
inside.
so that's what. Okay, well, that's what it was then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
And
Star.
I think the
Star went
Avatar
and-
ride
and
is still
she
there.
Managed to abscond a few for to give away his prizes at the panels. Oh wow, yeah, that was something. Can you imagine that initially? What a dearth of merchandise we had when the show was actually like first coming out and popular. You
Yeah.
had the
No,
Mattel toy line, which was late to the game, and then nobody bought it, and then. But
well,
then
I
after Netflix
actually,
stuff.
I think I emailed you about this because I was
Yeah.
writing a memoir comic about, so I have a book coming out that sort of deals a little bit about gender issues, and I was asked to like write about like sort of like, you know, what was the inspiration for it. And one of the things, you know, when I was reflecting on it was a conversation that I had with Aaron Ehas, the head writer of Avatar, at Comic-Con about those toys, and specifically the fact that there wasn't going to be a Katara toy. And I was like, I have this memory that like we had this like, we were both like, this is so crazy, like I can't believe they're not going to do that, like why, you know, that you know, what are they basing this on? And I think that's another one of those things that like, you know, the times have changed enough that hopefully, you know, that's a mindset of the past. But yeah, the whole idea was that like there was some research that had, you know, come out that if a boy saw that there was a girl character in a toy line, they would just be like, you know, I can't play with any of these toys if there's like, you know, like it's like crazy. Dubious research. That's the word.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if there's merchandise that comes out of the Netflix series, if they make, you know, stuff.
But why would you, you know, like, I mean, it would just kind of look, I don't know, like I never understood that, like making toys that look like celebrities thing. Like, I
Human
feel like it
characters,
looks,
yeah.
like you
I
already
hope
have
they
the cartoon
negotiated for
versions.
their likeness rights.
Right.
That is really, I mean, these are all mostly unknowns, right? I mean, Ozai is, I think I've seen him before.
He's probably the biggest name.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's what's
but-
funny when you guys were talking about not showing Lord Ozai. I was like, the problem is he's like the biggest name.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
you don't hire
Uh-huh.
Daniel Kim.
Yeah.
To
And
not
Iroh, I forget that actor's name, but he's
oh,
obviously
he's great.
been
Yeah,
involved with Star Wars and so many
Paul,
other
yeah.
things.
Yeah, I love him. Yeah,
He's
he's
great.
wonderful. Yeah, he was in Kim's Convenience. Yeah, I think all the cast was really great. That's my big, like, I hope the internet isn't horrible and like just tear on the actors and stuff, because
There's no reason. Everybody looked like they should, and everybody,
and they all
you know,
did a great
captured
job.
the spirit of what the acting the way they should, you know?
Oh, Yue, you're the only woman who's ever taken my mind off of food. Wait, did you have pickled fish for dinner?
Goodbye, Sokka. I have important moon duties to take care of. And yes, I did have pickled fish.
You never told me you made out with the moon spirit.
Shh, I'm trying to watch.
Well, guys, I'm gonna stop recording.
Okay.
We can keep talking
Okay.
about this forever and ever and ever.
I know.
We really could. Oh, there's so much.
But thanks so much for taking the time to hang out and reconnect. And I'm going to sleep better knowing that I had this conversation. I don't have to have them with my imaginary friends.
No, the moment you suggested that in email and you said that, oh, we could get everybody, I was like, yes, I miss you all so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know life takes us in all sorts of different directions, but moments like this, where you get to have a little bit of flashback in time, even if we never get together again, this is just, I've relished this and enjoyed it, and I want you to know how much I care about you guys, and I've enjoyed spending this time with you.
Yes, thank you. It has been an honor. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
You caught me. Wait, what's that? I think it's your honor.
Where?